Hello, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining. We're going to get started in about 1 minute. Good afternoon, happy Friday, maybe good morning or good evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again for being here on a Friday with me. I'm here. My name is David DeCespedes. We're going to talk about Manifest and do a little walkthrough, go through some of the inspirations and the ideas behind Manifest and the goals behind the workspace, and hopefully have some time to tackle any questions or comments from you all while we're here today. So just a little background on myself. I'm currently founding technology coordinator at a school in Miami called the Seed School. So I work with students and staff in terms of teaching technology and some computer science and programming. And prior to that, was creative director and co-founder of a small agency called Superform in New York, where we tackled UX and UI projects and some branding and marketing for local startups in New York and surrounding areas. So quick few norms with this session. If you have any questions whatsoever, definitely put them in the chat. And we should have around 15 minutes toward the end for any comments or questions. Again, apologies for starting a little bit late, having some Zoom issues. Kind of never fails, but just going to roll with it and keep it going. Okay, so quick goals for today, just to keep it going. Main things we want to focus on today are what were the inspirations of Manifest, kind of like background on it. I released it like 2 weeks ago on Gumroad, and we're at like over 600 downloads, which is kind of crazy, but thought it would be good to go through the inspiration for it. And also just looking at the mental framework of going from your larger life vision to specific tasks that you're overseeing on a day-to-day basis. And then most importantly, the demo, and hopefully some time for Q&A. So won't jump into this too much because it looks like we have a good amount of experience in Notion, but the way I look at it and the way I've approached it, looking at people like August Bradley, Marie Poulin, some others kind of working in the space, it's essentially Lego blocks that you can customize and have pieces of information talk to each other in a really unique way and a customized way that helps you get more work done and helps you get a little bit more creative with your work. So, you know, whether we were using Asana or Trello or Google Docs or Evernote, one of the interesting things, at least for me with Notion, is really the ability to customize these views and access the specific information about a project or a task that you want at that moment. I'm a big fan of just kind of opening a space, seeing where I left off, and jumping right back into the work to be able to continue making progress on one project at a time. So for me, that's kind of the huge thing and the huge benefit with a tool like Notion. So with templates, because I have a sort of mixed feelings about templates and using them and implementing, I was kind of hesitant to share Manifest. But typically, at least for me, over the past, I guess, like 2 years now, downloading or using templates and trying to get working in them is that they start very clean, very organized. Everything, all the databases are linked, and it's like, oh, there's so many things you can do with it. And then after maybe a couple days or weeks or maybe even months, it sort of falls apart. And this is personally, you may have had different experiences with templates, but I have always had trouble taking another tool and really getting the most out of it the way the kind of original creator intended. So for me, the templates that are very specific, like and specialized, tend to work better because I can imagine where they fit into my workspace. But for the larger kind of productivity system type templates, it's definitely a lot more of a struggle to just go from one day to the next and implement a system and also get some use out of it. So for me, the goal, with Manifest is creating a system that's minimal but effective. So a system that has only the information that you need and really allows users to build on top of it and apply your own workflow as added layers as time goes on. So it was really about taking existing systems. August Bradley's was a huge influence, as well as several getting things done templates and para templates, and starting by removing as much as possible while trying to understand my personal workflow a little bit more in there. Also, from Jonathan Stewart, from if you follow his Twitter, his Notion Biz, I think this was actually from today or yesterday, but he kind of wrote a quick blurb on the sort of a mini critique on templates, but really making the case that productivity is a personal process and a personal experience. So really making the point that it's a challenge for each of us to individually identify what are our values, what do we prioritize, and going through our own processes to develop a system that works for us individually. So I think with resources that are out there, which there are plenty, and it's exciting to see more and more people creating resources and sharing them very openly. For me, the next step is how do we go through our own process to figure out what's important and how to track it, and focus our energy and our time into projects and initiatives that we find to be most valuable. And so this system is something that I've personally been using for probably 4 or 5 months, and kind of wasn't planning on sharing it, but I just posted it on Reddit and had like a lot of people kind of asking for the template. So tried to quickly turn it into a template, and gotten a lot of positive feedback and response on it, which has been really cool. And it also kind of got me thinking, well, is there something to having a minimal but effective workspace that people can build on top of? So, which, I'm personally very excited about. We will skip this poll because I think there's some issues with the poll, but I guess quick yes or no, have you used Manifest yet? You may have found me through downloading it. So just curious, yes or no, if you've used it in the chat, just to see if we have any familiarity with it. Cool. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it. Okay. All right, got some notes. Cool. So this is kind of a first test drive of the system. Awesome. Okay. Very brief overview of what was top of mind when creating the system. These 4 resources personally have been resources that I've gone back to multiple times, and when I'm getting to the point where my productivity system is not really working the way I kind of imagined or intended, these 4 places I always refer back to. Big on audiobooks. So I don't know if there's an audio version for Building a Second Brain, but by Tiago Forte, but he did have a podcast where he had a series of shorts, which is also pretty interesting. But the way these kind of find themselves into the system is through these 4 key areas. So the getting things done in terms of goal setting, the 12-week year, which is not as popular, but has some really great resources and specifics on how to plan your goals and outcomes along like a quarterly time frame to really kind of reframe our thinking of time and how much time we have for meeting or exceeding certain goals. Atomic Habits, super popular, but great diving into detail on the specifics of habits, why they're necessary that we kind of acknowledge them. And the last one, building a second brain, which is huge with project management. You'll probably notice a lot of the kind of para method in Manifest. So kind of condensing these resources, I landed on these 5 spaces, and each space kind of spans wider or more narrow depending on where you are. So really kind of starting with vision, and I'll jump into this vision area first today to really kind of get our minds in, like, what does that mean for the projects that I'm creating? And moving into goals, which are shorter term, like primarily, what are my goals for this year? Objectives that are taking your goals and making them more quantifiable. Projects, which could be anything from creating a blog post to relaunching a website to creating a YouTube video. And lastly, tasks, the things that you're doing on kind of a daily basis. So, or, you may be doing, several of these a day. And then also visualizing the relationship between all of these spaces. So the vision guiding all of these other spaces and initiatives, and really fulfilling that vision, starting from the task, which is kind of the most atomic unit for the system. And then next, this part's a little not quite developed as fully as I'm thinking in the beta template, but looking at how often and what duration and cadence are you reviewing these spaces. So tasks, if you'll notice, they open up directly into the today card, which we'll look at. The weekly card, you'll notice you'll be able to see projects as well as tasks that are up next. Whereas when you get into objectives, goals, and vision, you're maybe reviewing these less regularly because the idea is that you're probably spending more time crafting your vision and crafting your goals for the year. So it's more about doing a quick refresh on those. And quote, which I think is super prescient, but it bears repeating. And I think Marie Poulin has this on our website too. Templates are not equal to a system, a productivity system. In other words, we have templates, and a lot of these templates that are available are very, very advanced and have a lot of amazing things happening, especially when we get into databases and creating formulas, so you can really visualize progress across tasks and projects. But where I think there's the biggest challenges, and where I think the energy should be going more into, is understanding our own system, how we currently work, the goals for trying to switch up how we're working and how we're improving our clarity or creativity, and maybe starting with a template and then crafting your own system on top of that, which is maybe kind of a healthy alternative to grabbing a template, plugging and playing, and seeing what we can get out of it, which some people can definitely do. I can't personally. I have a hard time with it. I kind of need to map out step by step every piece of a workspace to really understand it. So that's more of a personal observation. And then just a quick note on Manifest.
we're over like 600, but the goals for Manifest, because the response has been really exciting. So some things that are in the pipeline, some things that have already been started. The goal for me is over the next couple weeks, doing more deep dives into key areas of the workspace, starting from the now section, which is the view where you can see today and this week, looking at how the projects are filtered and different views that can be set up for projects depending on the type of work that you're doing. Office hours, first one is going to be next Friday, which is really going to be kind of an open platform to, if you are using it and have specific questions, there's going to be some time slots to be able to book. And second part of the year, trying to create a course that combines getting more comfortable with Notion with setting up your own personal productivity system. So really going through that linear progression of starting with a vision and really understanding what your kind of life goal is, and getting gradually more specific to be able to go through that brainstorming session and hopefully end up with some clarity on not only what your goals are, but what are the projects that are highest priority for you, and projects that you want to kind of start with and emphasize in the short term. And this is kind of throwing it out there, but starting with a hybrid course, which I'm imagining is kind of a set of YouTube videos and tutorials, but with the option of office hours and also some one-on-one time to kind of tackle some key areas. I work directly with students and staff, so I like to be in the same space, physical space, and I like to kind of troubleshoot and brainstorm in the moment. So for me, the kind of one-on-one is super important. We'll jump into the space just to kind of get a quick walkthrough and make sure we have enough time for any questions if we have them. Okay, so this is the workspace, and what I'll do is just kind of quickly introduce the sections and a little bit about how they work, and then look at going from one goal in particular all the way through to what does that look like in terms of setting up a project and setting up tasks that I want to execute on. So the first part of the workspace is the now space. So this basically is relating to two databases, a database for weeks. So by the end of the year, you'll have 52 of these pages that have information on goals that you've set up for that week, some challenges, etc., and also relating to a day's database. So one thing to keep in mind here is both of these views are filtered to only show the current time frame. So if you'll notice, the week's view is filtered for on or after 1 week ago. So if we had a week entry here, we would see that. And same thing goes for days. We can see both yesterday and today. I like to keep yesterday open just to, if there's any kind of loose ends, or if I didn't review the day at the very end of the day before closing it out, I can kind of quickly open it from this main view. And then if we open the new button, there's a template already there with some pre-populated questions and spaces for notes. So if I just open this up full page, I believe we're in week 10. Here, I'd probably set up the start and end date. And this is a perfect example of a space where we're linking to several different properties, but you may find yourself emphasizing other items. So for me, what am I learning this particular week? What am I referencing from the library? And big goals for this week. And then at the end, so by Friday, end of day, looking at any challenges and wins of that week. So as you get to the closer to the end of the year, it's possible to see all of these weeks in a table and visualize each week to understand, or here were my goals starting out, and what were some common threads in terms of challenges and wins, to be able to kind of get that insight and be able to plan in the future something that's ambitious but also manageable. And then if we go down a little bit, prepping for the week, this just has a quick to-do list and some different sections. So again, this is specific to my personal work. So really understanding meetings, things I'm trying to learn, teach, and make, and kind of high priority items that I have to get done. So I typically don't want to have more than 3 items in this space, but a way to kind of recenter work if I open this up in the morning. And then the task review, this has up next tasks. So we'll take a look at that in a moment, but up next is basically, excuse me, sorry. Up next is basically the highest priority items. If you've read GTD, I think he refers to them as next actions. So this also should be a list of tasks that are not too long, but should be the next most important tasks for you. And closing out the week, some quick reminders on things that I want to have done before I close out for the weekend. Things like just kind of organizing the computer, desktop, going into inbox, notes, and tasks that are all accessible from the homepage. And we'll go ahead and create a new day. Same thing, there's a template for this database. So when we create a new day, kind of get the same icon, we just give it a quick title. And we can assign this to week 10, which we just created. This area has more focus on the checkboxes, really in terms of tracking habits. So in this case, if we have 5 habits that I'm personally trying to get through in the day, by the end of the week, by Friday, Saturday, I can open up the day's database and see how I performed in each of these, to be able to maybe prioritize that particular task if I didn't do it or only did it 1 or 2 days, and kind of use that visualization to plan. And similarly to the week view, these are specific to things that you want to accomplish during the day. So I should probably do a better job of referencing where I'm getting these, but everybody from August Bradley, Ali Abdal, who had released a bunch of templates, I think Thomas Frank also, it's sort of sprinkled in a bunch of different Notion super users. But again, I think the daily view is really about identifying how can I set up my notes to open up, in a window on my computer throughout the day and kind of quickly refer back to, and use that to kind of reframe your work and your prioritization of work throughout the day. I do want to jump ahead to projects really quick. Projects in this case is also filtered only to show these 3 categories. So we have active projects, started, and on hold. And if you'll notice, this is pretty minimal. So the only thing that's showing up in this view is the name of the project and the area. So this is meant to be a quick shortcut to pop into a specific project. So if we were to go into this first project, just publish the intro YouTube video, what we'll see is a few things. One, it's part of this content creation area. So if we go back, again, we started with this 6 key areas, but if you have projects or hobbies that you value, that you are constantly working in, those would definitely be added to areas. Whereas projects are very definite, very finite, have a clear start and end date, and a clear set of tasks. So there's always some like questions about the difference between areas and projects. But if we go back into this project here, so we're going to open this up. And if we click on the project template button, this has a few key areas that after a little bit of customization can give you quick access to the information that you need. So we're going to open up tasks and filter this to this project. And I'll make this full screen so that we can see that. So these 3 spaces are part of that template. So once you filter to this particular project, which will do the same thing for pages and notes, it automatically opens up a Kanban style board where this is, if you're working in the project, if it's high priority first thing in the morning, we're opening this up and moving through this board. So if I know that this is done, I'll make sure to check that. And here we can also see what's in progress and what's up next. So if there's a task that's in progress, I'd probably want to open that up and complete it and move it along before getting to the up next space. Pages and notes are both databases as well, and are in that mindset area in the very bottom of the homepage. The way they're broken up is notes are very quick ideas, notes that are not quite projects or tasks, but that you want to refer back to sort later. So in getting things done, big emphasis on making sure you're clearing out your inbox, clearing out anything that's any open loops to put them in their appropriate place. So these 2 apply directly to that methodology. So with notes, could be across a specific project, and there are areas to label each note, whether it's about content creation, which this is tying in directly to that database. And if it's for a specific project, we can assign this project as well. And similarly, we can set up a filter so that the notes view is only showing up for this particular project. So we can publish this video, and this view is really about this project and using this as kind of a home base for completing those tasks. Same thing we'd want to do for pages. As well. Great. And then one thing I'll note is with project views, I know some people like to emphasize a particular outcome or a particular kind of, maybe you're referencing your vision statement. It's definitely an open possibility in terms of if we set up a vision statement up here, to kind of set the tone for this project. I'm going to go back into the home workspace, and if it's going too quickly, or if you got any kind of curiosities, definitely let me know in the chat, and happy to take a look at that. Two last spaces. Areas is pretty straightforward because this is simply linking to entries in our areas database. So if I open up the areas database, we have 6 entries here. And this is essentially just kind of copying this link and making sure that that's available as a shortcut to the manifest homepage. And if you'll notice, these are all of the properties that are associated with these areas. So we see everything from active projects in the second column. Are there any specific goals that you have that are associated with this area? And what tasks are live or kind of documented for that area. So if we go a little bit to the right, we'll notice that notes, pages, objectives are all kind of connected to your areas to allow you to kind of really filter these views the way you see fit. The other important point I'd make with the mindsets before we jump into this space is the main impetus for creating this area was really just organizing databases and making sure that if I'm editing a view, I'm not affecting the original database. That's kind of an issue that I personally had where I had databases hidden in different pages and kind of forgot where the original database was. So this is really a way to make sure that any valuable database that you have is in the same place, at the bottom of your home page, and it's quickly accessible. So even though we might not open up tasks because they're present and visible in the day view, in the project view, you know that it's here to create different views and create different filters based on what you're trying to do. So this current view I'm working on setting up mobile views for each of these databases just to default to that when you're on the Notion app so that you kind of edit out all the stuff that's not necessary and you kind of just want to make quick edits on a task or take a quick note, things like that. Would be one example of customizing that view. And with the mindsets, with going from that starting point of crafting your vision, that long-term idea of where you're trying to get, whether it's personally, professionally, a combination of both, academically, and working your way down into prioritizing projects. The thing that I suggest in terms of where to start would be the goals mindset. So which contains the long-term vision, your goals for the year, and specific, more quantifiable objectives. And in each of these, there are some kind of starter questions or sections to get going with setting these up. I've seen courses and tutorials that get a lot more in depth than this, but for me, this was, again, sort of the abstracted, as minimal as possible. What are the prompt questions that were helpful to get some clarity on my long-term vision? So things like, what do I stand for? Aspirational visions, 3-year goals, which is trying to get a little bit more tangible. And going into, what I want people to feel, what my work, why it's important, and what the world needs more of. So broad, reflective questions before you get into more detail. And if we look at the goals, again, you'll see this is pulling in some content from the vision page, but also getting more specific with just kind of reflective questions like things you're looking forward to, things you're apprehensive about. Let's see if I put something in here. Yeah, so this was at the start of the year. So family health was pretty high priority, and very much looking forward to getting back to normal, hopefully soon. And the goals page ends with this main database, which has an opportunity for you to specify a goal and start to tie it to a specific area and specific objectives. So, if we get into here, these are all using relations to every other area in the workspace. And then I'll open up objectives, but another big benefit of having these databases visible is that you can see at any point in time very quickly what are the pieces of information that you're tracking, and making sure that that's clear in terms of what's relating to each other. So we know that the library contains books, podcasts, resources, courses, taking visual library, and they're all kind of labeled. They're all labeled the same way, so it's easy to navigate, even though you're not in the original database. And the last thing, which is objectives, this again is more about getting quantifiable and having a goal that you can track your progress throughout. I like to use quarters. So there's a quarters database here. So an objective for quarter 1 is publishing 5 YouTube videos. And we can see the kind of relations happening in here as well. One thing to keep in mind, if you've used Notion, this is probably old news, but when you create a relation in one space, it automatically adds an entry to that other space. So that could get a little bit unwieldy if you're starting to make relations and then you go back into another section, and then all of a sudden you have these new properties that you weren't anticipating, and it gets overwhelming. So I'm very much about trying to minimize that sense of being overwhelmed and maximizing focus. And the last area we'll get into, so that if there's questions, we can tackle those. If we go into the library, this is a space that has an area to kind of keep your books, podcasts. These were, I think I was pretty into North Star podcast by David Perel, which is pretty awesome. He gets some really cool invitees on the podcast. But learning, same thing. If you're taking courses that are online or via places like Skillshare or Masterclass, being able to refer back to these, and also being able to track your progress in the daily and weekly view. So this is really about kind of having these learning, consuming spaces organized in the library. And the organized mindset, lastly, this is an area for pages that didn't quite fit in any other mindsets. So for example, pages that you've published that are maybe shared publicly or shared with collaborators that you want to make sure don't get deleted or moved, or the rights change, which can happen, gets into this space, as well as an area to file, GTD method, cleaning out your spaces, or if you've imported files from elsewhere and haven't quite sorted them, they would live in this page. And any templates that you've downloaded and want to try out and play with, but haven't got around to it, could live in their own space before they might move into, say, a project view or an area view. And the lastly is archive, moving things, cleaning things out that are not relevant or not actionable before deleting them permanently. So in terms of day-to-day, the thing that I've felt works the best is definitely opening the day view and keeping this open and kind of making progress. And I tend to just start adding some notes and brain dumping into this page kind of first thing in the morning to then refer back to throughout the day. And one thing to one thing that I found helpful from other kind of Notioneers is making a distinction between things that you formally want to track, giving those a property in this page where they have a checkbox or they have a relation to another database as a more formal practice, so that you can get the benefits of going back into the database, opening up a table view, and visualizing your progress with that particular habit or reference. Whereas inside the page, if it's more of a kind of brain dump process or guiding questions to get you into a specific mindset, but you're not necessarily going to refer back to, adding those into the page so that, as this gets saved in your database, you're not necessarily referring back to it, and you don't have to worry about managing an additional database. So that distinction, at least personally, has helped quite a bit. Trying to think that's about it. If we didn't take a look at the areas, but just to quickly open this up, very similar to projects. The only distinction is we kind of start with this vision statement particular to this area, and you have a space to visualize what projects are you pursuing within that area. So within content creation, we would do the same thing, filter this by area, and then we'll have these 3 projects pop up and are visible, and would probably keep this filter on unless we're creating additional views. Maybe you want a Kanban view or just a list view if it's kind of more simplified. And that's roughly about it. The kind of goal over the next couple of weeks is doing a deeper dive into each of these sections, and also for the next version of Manifest, focusing on more templatized pages and spaces, things like days, weeks, projects, areas, so that there's kind of more topical information for that space. And it's also just easier to ramp up on a particular project or set of tasks. So that's about it. I want to make sure if we have any questions, I'm definitely happy to answer them, or comments. You can definitely feel free to unmute or add a note in the chat. Definitely a work in progress, but progressing little by little. Going once, going twice. Okay, question, how do I find out about the updates? The next version is going to be added to the same Gumroad template and area for download. So if you're part of the list or downloaded the original version, usually Gumroad kind of gives a quick update, and should be in the same space and with those new features. I think with the updates, there are kind of limitations with Notion in terms of if you're working in a space and need to migrate to a new template or a new workspace, that could get a little tricky. So the updates will be kind of very focused and kind of with clear instructions if you are migrating any content from a previous workspace. Okay, well, on that note, just the last few notes. Those of you who attended, thank you. This is kind of like the first walkthrough of Manifest, and I'll be sharing a link for anyone that's interested in doing a quick one-on-one check-in or a walkthrough on any specific area of Manifest, or if you just have questions or comments, just as kind of like a thank you for being here and giving me your time. And lastly, as I said earlier, there will be an update and more content around the system. And I'm imagining that as it gets more developed, there will be some more opportunities for improving it and making it more useful. So if I leave you with anything, it would be a template's not a system, and taking the time to walk through, starting with a vision, and finding resources around that long-term vision planning and goal setting. And if you're incorporating this template or another template, really sketching out or kind of writing out some notes on what you're trying to do with your system and what's top of mind for you, so that the system can work for you versus the other way around. So hope that was helpful. Definitely reach out via Twitter or email. I'll kind of leave these pieces of information in the follow-up. So thank you again, and have a great and safe weekend.